Good morning everyone. So it's been a long while since I've done an FX video, so thought I would just do a little one on the results, not so much on the TA, or a little bit on the TA, just so I don't have to post all the results with text more than anything. So just a quick look at the dollar while I'm starting here. So we had, firstly, I guess all your charts now need to be updated for the 6 month, 3 month, 1 month, 2 month, 1 month closes. So I've done all that over the weekend. The dollar has closed, sorry my chart is very messy when I look high time frame, but you know, it's closed just over this level, so we now have a 6 month supply in there, sorry, 6 month demand in there. It's not the best one because obviously it's made up of 3 candles, but it's a level to be aware of if we do revisit. So I've got a 3 month down there, but that's a... So we were also in a 3 month supply, and this has been a bit of the challenge this year, that the same with the dollar, the pound and the euro, etc., have had this 3 month demand, but similar to this, they've come all the way to the bottom of it, as this has come all the way to the top of it, and it's a weak demand, weak supply in this case. Yeah, so that's something to be aware of. We're still in 3 month supply, but I mean, really it's just a sideways range, so these levels are not strong. So again, this is 6 month. It's not a strong level because it hasn't closed over this high from prior to the 6 month being created. But that doesn't mean it won't react. So yeah, wouldn't be looking for shorts when we come down and hit this 6 month level or in this area. Like I say, it's a big zone, so it could go all the way down to the bottom, but just be aware of that. If we do come down to here, just check your bias a little bit in case it does get some significant bounce off there. The structure on this I'm not overly clear on anyway, because we obviously had this massive impulse post-COVID, then a big retracement, and now we're just sort of consolidating in the middle. So I could see a move up to here almost as much as I could see a move down to here. I always wanted the lows to be revisited here, and it just front ran me. So situation unclear, and I'm just trading the lower time frames on this more than anything. When I put the alerts on the charts, just something to be aware of if people, anybody following those alerts. Obviously not financial advice, but for me it's just looking for a reaction. I don't always make an effort to put to check the bias when I put them. Just sometimes I do, like for example, if I see something, we'll see a few, like if I see something coming off a monthly demand, I probably then won't put a load of shorts against it. But occasionally I do, because like you'll get, obviously you can see here, you had a month up here, so you still want to be trading in both directions. For me, I tend to scalp, so for me I'm just looking for the, the initial reaction on the zone. I'm not necessarily then looking for a new low, like on something like this for a new low, or price, if this is hitting a weekly supply for a target all the way down here. I'm just looking for the initial reaction and then follow up for thereafter. So you need to look at the structures yourself and see what you want to trade. On the plus side, I think some, like, generally they do get a reaction. If the price is very, very strongly trending the other way and it just barrels straight through it, then generally you won't even get the chance to have the entry on the low time frame, so there is that in its favour. Dollar's been just slightly challenging because it came down here, it hit a 3 week demand. Well, actually it had the initial reaction here, I think, so that was an easy long off there. And then it came back for a retest on a 2 week, but then here it's just been a bit more challenging because it's taken its time moving off it. It did swing fairly again into the 3 week, but didn't take out the low there. So now I'm just sort of slightly unsure if we're going to make a lower high. Has it got enough traction off this 3 weeks still to get through here? Obviously the start of this week thinking not, but then it's still early days and we still have, we're getting a 2-day demand now, daily demand. So we're just looking for whether this structure is going to hold. There's still an uptrend here, but it is quite corrective when compared to this. So this week may get a retracement if you start to see a demand break here, or consolidation through here for another push higher. So just onto the results quickly. Like I say, I don't want to post all of them, so I'll just run through them really quickly. So we've got, the other thing, just from a learning perspective, when I've laid out all my charts, anybody who's followed me sees them, that I lay out all the pound stuff together, all the Aussie stuff together, New Zealand, yen, etc., so I can see confluence across the pairs, which helps a lot when we're making judgments on these zones. Like, I'm aware that if euros hit a zone but pound hasn't hit yet and Aussie hasn't hit yet, then there's a chance it's not ready. and it's going to take some time. Yeah, so with that said, the alerts are from April to June now, because I haven't done an update since then because I'm very, very slow. And yeah, so similar to the dollar on this, you know, the euro's obviously done this big move up and is now correcting. Again, it's, are we going to break? I was looking at the bigger picture on the weekend. Again, excuse my messy chart, you know, are we going to, this is a big triangle consolidation, are we now going to break up from this, or are we going to break down from this? Situation unclear. We've had a good move this morning, but still in this downtrend, and still potentially this is just a stop hunt, but you know, maybe we'll just get more of a range through here again before it makes a decision. So as of this morning, we hit a 2-day supply here, which was, I think my alert went here but was just missed, or the zone was just missed, and so yeah, I put it in for a swing failure here. It hasn't exactly swing failed, at least on the 12-hour time frame. It's closed above, but it's starting to see a bit of a retracement now. And then yeah, so previously decent shorts through here, short scalp there, poor short there, good long entries through here, a little bit early on that one. But yeah, so from a zone perspective, you know, I do try and just put in, you know, the start and the end of impulses if there's a major zone there. Obviously I'm mostly just putting major zones, weeklies, monthlies, dailies. Occasionally I'll put 12 and 8 hour if I'm more on top of the charts, but that just sort of varies. You see there's a 12-hour in there now. So yeah, not too bad on the euro, just generally a little bit early on a couple of the longs, and then one poor short in the pound. Again, good bias at the lows here, looking for longs. So yeah, like I said, that's why I sort of expect people to use their own judgment. So here, this first alert would have gone saying this is a weekly. So while this looks like, oh, it may have been stopped out, yes, only stopped out if you try and take in a scalp off a weekly with a far away target with a tight stop. You know, so really this weekly zone obviously is still holding, and then you get the deeper test inside it. So the other thing is, like quite often with the major zones, what you'll get is that initial reaction, and then it'll come and test the level, which can mean just a stop hunt of the initial hit or a few candles below or above, before then the bigger move occurs. And you see the sort of similar at the top here. You know, I had a tap into the weekly supply there. I actually wanted it to take some stops off here, but then it had the second hit a few days later, and again, nice trade in the other direction at that point. Most of what I've found that's failed so far on reviewing all of these are, you know, when price has been strongly trending one way and I've been just a little too aggressive, for example on these two shorts, but again, they still both gave you scalps, and that's why I keep alerting them. Apparently I've been quite aggressive on shorting here. It's more, I've been more on top of the charts last week. Yeah, so again, you get that initial reaction, but this, I mean, these very possibly are in some major weekly zone up here, or there's a 2-weekly zone here, so that would have been sort of the first hit, the second hit, and then it's gone all the way to the almost to the top of the 2-weekly zone. But arguably, this is still a successful swing trade if you were swing trading it. So yeah, I don't necessarily consider these so much like wins and losses. I just like to look to see if I've been very, very poorly biased or anything like that, and what I can learn from it, if anything. Like mostly I don't change how I set the alerts as a result of looking at these results. So yeah, so not too bad on pound. I think, yeah, the start of last week also, Monday, probably similar to today, we had a sort of pump at the start of early in the day or early in the week, which took us up through this 8 hours. So there was a failed one in there, and then up into the higher time frame above. And then came and swing failed the low, so I'm not sure if we're going to get a move up from here, but I guess we'll see. Just hit this 3-day supply with an alert this morning on pound. Euro pound, I think I had fewer on this. You know, I had a bit of a gap here, I'm not sure why. I was obviously fairly unsure of bias at that point. I think I was, because I think we had a, I think this was a level I'd had in for a while that I really wanted it to come up and hit, but then it ended up rejecting earlier. But I've got a feeling that alert was set from sort of back here, and then this monthly was put in, which got the bigger move down. And again, not bad here. There's one short that was run through there. This one, obviously, I was looking. The black crosses tend to be where I'm looking for a swing failure, although I don't always like designate them like that, so it's a little bit harder. poor long in there from, obviously I was trying to seek for the higher low there after the swing failure here, which we didn't get. And now back down into what looks like a monthly demand here. And again, I think I was a little early on that because, so I have some problems occasionally with Forex.com. So you can see here, for example, you can see the candles are exactly the same height. Because Forex.com widens the spreads quite a lot. Their daily candles sometimes don't close correctly. So if I go to the 12 hour, you can generally see it on the 12 hour. So you can see there's a random line that's at the top, but it's actually at the top of the wick rather than the actual level should be here. And I had some problems through here with a little bit of that happening. So I think I did disclaimer that long entry. We'll take that out now, actually not that level. With there's a bit of chop through here, and the exchanges are sort of messy, but I think it might have been on the 12-hour demand, and it did come out and take out the low. That was the other thing I was going to say, yeah, that sometimes when I tend to find things fail, it's when either the trend is just super strong and we get a pump straight through the zone like this, and normally you can tell that you were probably counter trend at that point. You know, here you can see there's a few, it could have rejected here at the top of the range. I think that might have been a 30-minute supply that I hadn't taken the alert out of actually, and that it's just going to do an extra run before, or that you'll find that the zone is swing failed. So again, just be careful, you know, don't necessarily give up on it if it pushes high into a zone and then the zone gets a swing fail, because you can still get some really decent moves even with the stop hunt of the zone. So I tend to, if it doesn't get the initial reaction and then pushes higher, then I will tend to look at just watch the highs of the zone just in case it pushes over, particularly if you've got a situation like this where you've got like a 3-week supply and a wick just before it. If you're looking at a major zone with a swing fail that can go straight into it, that's a good place to be, or good place to be looking in this case for shorts. So again, not too bad on Euro Pound there. A couple of scalps, a couple of decent moves, and 1 or 2 fails. And then last week, and again, you can see with the ones last week that I'm much more on point. That's because I was trading it more actively myself. So like we had a decent long in here, and you'll get the more tighter entries if you start seeing me do 12-hour and 8 hours. It's probably because I'm looking at the charts more frequently. Pound Aussie. So again, similar here. Decent longs through here, and I think we had this big sort of monthly demand in here, and that's why I was looking for longs. And it's a good example is that you'll get that decent reaction off the top, but in this case didn't break supply, and then it's just coming deeper, and now is deeper again, and in fact could go all the way back down to here. So while you're looking at this sort of giant monthly demand, it looks like, does it have a 3-month in there now? That's an old 3-month, I think it might have been a 3-month, yeah, so there's a 3-month demand in there as well. So while obviously it can come very deep in here, this is a weak 3-month because it didn't take out this high. And again, the weaker ones are more likely to come deeper. You'll get the initial reaction, then you'll get the taking out the action, and then this one really has just drifted quite deep into the zone now. But again, that's the benefit of trading both directions, is that you can then get your shorts and longs in. I think here long I was hoping for another push off there, and it only got up and it made a daily supply. That's the other thing, I guess, with the alerts. One other thing to be aware of is that sometimes I'll put an alert in. So for example, I might have put this one in, you know, after that green candle, and if I don't check in time, then I don't know it's made a daily supply in between. And therefore you need to be conscious of what you're trading, and like if something comes into a zone and it's made a, you know, a 4-hour, 12-hour demand immediately underneath where a short entry is, then you might want to wait until that's hit. So if here, for example, you know, if I'd had a short up here, then you would only want to scalp it down to this 4-hour demand, because then it's obviously got this possibility it's taking out the high. In this case it did, and then you can look for an entry once it's done the second test. Or look for the bigger move once it's done the second test. Yeah, again, Pound Aussie, I think I was being, again, slightly biased to the long because of this 3-month demand and the monthly demand, but it's not giving me much, and I think it ran through there on that. So I had an alert there on, for I think a 12-hour and 8-hour on Friday, which has run through, and is still probably going to take out those lows now having a new daily supply in there. So yeah, not too horrendous on that, but all of those not too bad. Like I say, a mix of few swings, few scalps, and a couple of stop outs. Aussie pairs. So Aussie has just been giving this sort of impressive range for all of May and June. So again, I was biased, I think, so alongside this monthly was made, I think has only just been made or was made later. I was obviously biased for longs here. I was looking for a swing fail there, which obviously didn't get, or I had a disclaimer on it, and eventually did get decent long off the low there, but with a few scalps in between and a couple of very small scalps. Then I think, yeah, there was a short I had in here because we did make a monthly, well, it did make a monthly supply just there, it closed just below. And I think, again, I did disclaimer it, but didn't necessarily expect it to go pump straight up through it that quickly, so I was slightly biased short there, and then, again, just let it run for a couple of weeks there until it hit the highs again, and now it's just been generally giving reasonable trades through this range. It's obviously a more aggressive long entry I had in there, which didn't work, and aggressive short, so there were a couple of, this was more challenging again because of the range, so once you start getting into a bigger range, something to be aware of, then you're going to get obviously supply and demand become weak because they haven't broken the opposing, therefore they're more likely to either break or swing fair on the other side. So in this, I think this was a weekly supply in here eventually, but this just took a wick straight through the whole lot and swing failed in there. And again, in this case, it's left all these highs up here, and I think even one's further to the left here, there's a double set of equal highs up there, so I'm not convinced this isn't now going up, although I was kind of being biased short last week on it. I was hoping, it actually really annoyed me because I did short myself, I think, through here somewhere, and this wick just didn't quite hit my lower take profit in here, nor breakdown, which I think I had take profits even down here, because this is the only one of pound, euro and New Zealand that hasn't really come down and taken out these lows, or not recently, it did at the start of June, but yeah, anyway, so not too bad on here, but then the ranges with some slight challenges on the range, pushing higher into zones. So this is another example. I think I had an alert here for the 8 hour, and it's pushed up and eventually swing failed the top of the 8 hour before the move down. Less good on that, but still not horrendous. Maybe 60-40, at least for getting scalps. Aussie CAD's probably quite similar. It actually looks a little bit better here. So again, from the start of April, end of March, decent long, couple of shorts. Yeah, and unfortunately the retest here just took out the low rather than bouncing for a higher low at that point. But some decent, a couple of decent longs, couple of decent shorts. And then, obviously it just started pushing higher here. I'm not sure that would just been for a lower high there, so that zone got run through for a consolidation. And then here would have given you a decent short, another decent long, and I've got a few decent longs in here once that have made this weekly demand. Because again, when prices are trending really hard, the other thing that I kind of can miss, and we'll see it very much on the yen pairs, is that, yeah, they're not. So if I set an alert, so for example, I would have had this alert set here for a while, I probably would have had an alert set down here, and if they don't get hit, then I never get the long entries, but you'll see short, 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 and it looks like I'm very counter trend, but that's generally not the intention. It's just that it's been very, very aggressive, and I haven't been looking at the 12 hours or 8 hours to get the entries, or like here, for example, it hasn't come back to test this 4 hour down here, it's just taken off. So it's kind of mixed. Like sometimes if they do come back and test, then it's great, but then if they get in the range, like sometimes it works nicely. Like here, this is much nicer than the Aussie US range, that it's come back and hit a few of these levels, making this triangle. The critical thing on this is that we hit yearly supply, so my bias has gone more to the short side, and hence more aggressive short in here, but it is still holding the higher lows just to be a little bit awkward. And now also has a new 3-month demand down here, so we're going to have a yearly supply competing with a 3-month demand to watch out for on that. But generally, pretty good results on Aussie CAD. Euro Aussie is probably similar to Pound Aussie, in that, again, I think we had, I see now it's got a big 3-month supply, but I think this did also have, let me just check, I think the challenge I had on this, so it did close above, this green candle closed above here, so we did make a weak 3-month demand there, but I think again we're overall in an annual supply, but it's a second hit on the annual supply, so we had this big COVID hit and its second hit. So again, when you start getting these major zones competing, then I find it a little bit harder to determine my bias, and you can find it sometimes obviously a 3-month broke in this case, had some bounces, but again it was just means my bias was slightly, fairly to the long side, with some longs through here, some of which worked. I mean, most of them, to be fair, gave bounces, but it was, and I think I put that in one of my earlier updates earlier this year, saying that my bias was a bit mixed on these because I just wasn't sure if this 3-month was going to hold or not. So bias has been to the long side despite going down, but again, I think on this is a similar scenario where I've had short entries that just haven't been tested because we've had slow price action, but it hasn't necessarily gone up as high as I would like for some decent shorts. But again, just now looking to see if we're going to get a turnaround here. We did have a decent long from Friday on that, early long. But again, even this, I remember because I was watching this at the time because of counter trading on Aussie US, so this generally does the opposite to Aussie US. I think here I wanted a swing fail of some level there, which was a disclaimed entry, and it has gone deeper. Then there was a retest here, but again, it did, while it looks like not a great trade, it's still 4 or 5 hours of up that at least allows you to either scalp and take profit or put your stop to break even before a drop. And that's really what I want to see when I'm looking at these alerts, that that either they get blasted through, but for the most part, if you're trading a zone, it shouldn't, either it gets blasted through and you never take the trade in the first place, or you get the bounce and you can get in, like here, this is a 2-hour chart, but maybe you could get in on a 15-minute time frame or something like that, or even if you could have gone in on this M candle, but at least means that you can potentially tighten your stop to break even and or take a scalp off it. So yeah, that's kind of one thing I'm looking for. This one actually, I think this might have run through. I think again I had a 12-hour in here, and like the pound, I think it just wicked down to just below the zone for the swing failure, and now it's come up and taken the highs out from Friday this morning. But again, not too bad on that, but like I say, I would have liked to have more shorts in there, I think, because I think my bias was obviously too much long bias, but again, due to the monthly demand, so it can be hard. New Zealand pairs. Again, I was like, was I overly, I can't remember if I was short biased on this or not. I don't think I was, because I certainly wouldn't have been having hit monthly demand there, but again, they're like nothing too bad on here. Like this one would have wicked down to take that, so getting those lows and getting the ultimate low can be a bit more challenging because you will find some stop hunting going on. And then a sort of decent long entry in there up to a short and down to a long again, so some pretty nice entries in there, but then these two shorts with hindsight probably shouldn't have been in there given we just come off the monthly demand. But at the time it kind of always looks like, well, maybe you can get a scalp off that, particularly if it's a daily supply or something like that. I guess that alert went but didn't quite hit the zone, and then when it came back to it, it went through it, and then now we're back up in 6-month supply. So again, my bias has gone very short in here due to the 6-month, and now also stop hunting inside the 6-month. But again, it took its sweet time of breaking down. I think I had a very aggressive short in there, but again, got a bit of a scalp off it, but then ran straight all the way up to the highs. To swing fail at the top, and again I did have an alert up there for that swing failure, which again I've started doing more this year, so I hope that's been helpful if anybody is following these, just putting the equal highs in and things, because I felt like I was missing a lot last year from just using zones or just alerting zones, even missing for myself rather than looking at where equal lows and equal highs were that could get targeted. So obviously be aware, if something does, if the price does target equal highs or equal lows, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stop there. But what you're looking for is that swing failure in the lower time frames to confirm that this is just a stop hunt, and then it's likely to go and take out the lows of the wave. But again, I don't, like in this case, while my target strictly is the low of that wave, because what this is telling me is those sellers, it's taken out those sellers, but these buyers aren't strong enough to take out these sellers, so I expect to go lower than here. However, I don't generally have the patience to hold it, because quite often, you know, it's very possible that you get a bounce here and it would go all the way back up before coming down and taking out the low again. I'm sure I can find examples of that. And, or, you know, maybe it just doesn't, it's taken enough stops on the way down and then doesn't feel the need to take out the start of the wave. But yeah, anyway, not too bad on here. Like I say, my bias has gone more short now because we've got sort of weekly and 4-day supply in there. I think we've now made a monthly in here as well. Well, no, it's just got the 6 month. But again, yeah, my bias was definitely more short. It's a bit choppy through here, so just for this week, if any of these alerts come in, this chop was sort of throwing me off a little bit, so I've put a comment in there, 1-2 day supply, and then there's some equal highs there, and then this, what is that? I think that's just retesting at the 6 month level. Or maybe that is a new 6 month actually. Yeah, it is a new, so there is a new 6 month supply in here. So be aware of that if you're trading the New Zealand dollar. And there's a 2-day in there and it's got equal highs here. So if we do come back up, then I would probably look for a rejection around the 0.615 mark. And that potentially could get a bigger trade being a 6 month supply. Euro, how are we up to? 26 minutes. That's not too bad. I'll put chapters on this so you can sort of skip to where you want to. So Euro New Zealand, again, similar to EUROAUD, but I think it's been slightly easier because although there was a 3 month demand in there, but obviously for some reason I wasn't as aggressive on the longs in that. I don't know if we have the yearly supply on here. Like we do, so yeah, it's kind of in this giant yearly here, but not necessarily. Gosh, it's hard to see once you start looking at the low time frames, which is why I have to do these updates so I can then remove all my crosses and I can actually see what I'm doing to some extent. So I can't remember here, but obviously I was biased short, a little bit early there, not too bad. But again, did come up for the swing failure, so if you tried to take a swing trade off this, then you probably would have got stopped out unless you've been using a stop all the way above this weekly. But that's probably why I was trading on this weekly supply here in general. And I think, yeah, at this point also, so again, like I said, it's a reciprocal. If the New Zealand dollar had been hitting this monthly, I guess the New Zealand dollar was hitting the monthly demand, when was this? End of April. So what I would then have been looking for is the reciprocal, yeah, the end of April for the this to be short biased, while New Zealand is long biased. Well, New Zealand, US is long biased, and I look for Euro New Zealand to be short biased for the confluence. So again, that would have been some of the slightly more aggressive shorts there. So not the best results actually. While it looks like I'm shorting the high, which is nice if you did take the swing trade, there's probably the scalps wouldn't have been great except for maybe that one, although that did then subsequently get taken out. Decent long in there. This, I think, yeah, was one of those that I alerted for a possible swing failure of those lows, but again, it just plowed straight through it. And then here, oh yeah, this was a weekly demand. I think that's why I didn't alert it, and I can't remember if I put in the comment or not, but yeah, these clear, again, when you're looking at these entries, look for clear stop hunts that can be done. So this was a clear stop hunt, so yes, it did give an initial reaction on the weekly demand that was in here, but not very long, because then it came back and took out these stops and did it very slowly. So I think I was then just waiting for it to take out the stops and then had longs here and here, and then again just a bit too aggressive, so it's come down and taken out the lows, gone back into this 3 month demand, and so I've still been more bullish on this more recently, but now back up in 2-day supply. So I just want to need to see now if we're going to get some of the bigger reversals on these. You know, is this going to come down and give us a macro double bottom, or is this just going to drop further from here? And similarly, like I said, the reciprocal on New Zealand dollar, is this 6 month supply going to either get a test and reject kind of immediately here? I mean, bear in mind again, 6 month supply is a massive zone, could go all the way up top if it wants to. So yeah, trade zones as we see them. Dollar Swiss franc, which doesn't really fit on the New Zealand page, but doesn't really fit anywhere else because I don't, what's the word, I don't look at any of the other Swiss franc pairs. It's too much as it is. But again, I think I've put in my previous update, so I was kind of short biased all the way up here, and again, in part because it wasn't giving me the long test, although I think I may have got one in there and certainly one right at the bottom. But this has an annual supply on it. So just show you quickly. So yeah, again, huge zone, and I draw it from the bottom of this green candle to the top here. Some people use the last green candle, so in this case it has gone higher in there, but again, it's while you might get the initial reaction off it, like it can go higher inside. And similarly, we had this 3 month here, and it's gone almost to the top of the 3 month inside the annual, and very possibly could come and take out that high. Certainly if the dollar's strong, then it will. But yeah, so I was very short biased on this, just because of that annual supply. But it took its sweet time moving, but you can see there's lots of shorts through here, but eventually we've got some good ones in there. Got the absolute top eventually, and then a nice easy retest on it actually, and then a couple of scalp ones through here, and as well as a couple of longs before it finally fell off a cliff. Again, scalp long in there, and then now we're back down in 2 week demand, so we're going a nice long off the low. I did have a short in there because it was a 4-day supply, I think. But I do remember I disclaimed that last week, saying, well, it might, and also this 4 hour here, saying that it might go higher inside because it's now coming from a 2 week demand. So again, like I say, I will alert it just in case you get a scalp, and this really didn't give much. But then I flipped back for this decent long last week, which is nice. And I've got 2 new possibilities coming in there. I think this random line is an example of Forex.com having the levels in their dubious places. But yeah, anyway, so again, the challenge with this is that I know we're in annual supply. I know I can see obviously there's a monthly here in the brown up here. There's a 6 month. I think this might be a new 6 month on that. No, there's an older 6 month. But the challenge is being in annual supply, knowing that. Yeah, coming off 2 week demand, so obviously we expect a bounce, but how much of a bounce we're going to get is the challenge. I was wondering if I should close. I just shorted Euro and Aussie, so I was wondering if I should close them. Okay, so that's the New Zealand and Swiss franc. So the yen pairs are just obviously mental. So, and for the most part, so I did manage to get, so finally, and then again, so this is also another thing that illustrates the challenge, I guess, that, when you've got these huge runs, I'm looking at this on the daily because it's obviously massive runs, I'm trying to put in the long entries, and often it doesn't come back, but the problem is, when it does want to come back, then it will come through everything, so then I don't want to find like 10 levels blasted through, and it becomes, at this point, once it's gone up this high, is it just going to throw a giant red candle through all the zones below? And in the case of all these pairs now, they've made 6 month, 3 month, 1 month demands, so just check those on all the yen pairs. But they're still fairly far away in many cases, so they could, it could come significantly lower. So at least dollar yen has the monthly quite close, although I think it's got an untested 6 month all the way down here. So yeah, so on the dollar yen, and some of them we've got some, I think this was slightly front run off the 2 month level there. And then here I was just a bit loath to put in long entries because I wasn't sure if this was just going to cliff dive from this point. Decent short there. Long off weekly demand here, it came a bit deeper inside, another long entry on the daily in there. So I've got a couple of longs in on this more recently, and then I still put shorts in just in case, because why not? And like I said, it's up to everybody to manage what they do. For the most part, if they hit, I just watch them. I obviously tend not to scalp in the other direction, because more recently it's just been super crazy. So here, there was a 30-minute supply in here, which actually all the others I think did reject, hence why I put that alert in there. I think it went just over the zone, so it did give a decent scalp. But in some cases they just get blasted, the short entries on this, but not too bad on dollar yen. There's a couple back here. So here I think I was still looking for that lower high, so those obviously failed dismally with a massive breakout after that point. And overarchingly, when you look at this, and this is why I like to know where my monthly zones are. And I remember having this conversation with somebody. So we had this 2014 to 2021, so 7-year consolidation through here onto this 6-month demand, and it did wick through that zone but then held it on the retest. So it's fairly unsurprising on the 6-month chart why we've had this massive move. Then it made another 6-month demand, didn't quite test it. So it's fairly unsurprising it's had this huge move. And even if I look at the ICE chart, which is the bigger, so if you run out of history on your broker, then you go to the ICE chart, because that will then show you the extra history. I'm not sure if this is all the history, but it's kind of the one I found that's got most. So again, like there's fair chance this is going up here, unless the Bank of Japan intervene. But obviously we're coming into 2-week supply, etc., some possible swing fail levels, etc. So I just, I will put the alerts in on those. But again, like I say, I remember having a discussion with somebody who was very, very short biased, and I remember thinking, well, the 6-month demand hasn't broken yet. And while it did have many tests on it and did take 7 years, it did eventually get this massive breakup. But I suppose it's easy to say that in hindsight, once you've had 7 years of sideways, and you kind of tend to expect more sideways. Anyway, back to Euro Yen. So yeah, I think very similar scenarios with these is that they often don't come back for my long entries, but the shorts obviously have much more 50-50. You have some okay shorts in here actually. Long entry there, I think it eventually wicked through that one. Very nice long entry after that big drop from Easter, and then came back through on the retest. Yeah, I think it gave a tiny reaction on the very low time frame, and then like I say, we had this 30-minute at the top here, so that gave a decent reaction, nice retest. But then again, the final retest, it just decides to continue going up again, and I think at that point I probably would have had an alert down here on the 12-hour demand, which obviously didn't get hit. That's the other thing I can sometimes have a problem with, that if it doesn't hit a zone properly, so for example here, I think, well, it hasn't hit here, I want it to come back and hit here, so therefore I become almost short biased for it to hit my level, which is an error I can make, because that has happened to me like many times, and it doesn't come back and hit the level and it will bias the wrong direction. Friday I thought was interesting, yeah, and again I just put some, because I was watching, I put some aggressive, like there was a 4-hour supply that went in here, it hadn't broken any structure, but I can't remember why I did that. I think the news had just come in, and I think I was looking for, or I think euro and pound, etc., had just dropped, and I was thinking that might give more of a move down on the yen pairs, but obviously the yen weakness just overrode that. There's a surprise. And yeah, similar, and also yeah, I think we'd had pound yen had also hit daily, and now we've hit this 3-day today. But again, it's still very high risk on the short side here. But just with these, so we get these trails of stops going up, then it takes a few of them and goes up more, and trails of stops going up, and then actually in this case it hasn't taken a few of them, but again, we might get a push down into here at some point, and at some point this is going to need to correct. But use the very high time frame charts on this, dailies, 12 hours, etc., and don't sort of FOMO into shorts or swing failures. That's the other thing you can kind of consider. So pound yen, similar to the others, got a few decent shorts for scalps in here, another one before the breakout, and then this big move. And again, the confluence was really nice on here. So when this big move happened just before Easter, we did have this hit monthly supply. I think dollar yen hit a significant, it's gone back over it again now, but this 160 level was a very significant level from historically. I think Aussie may have hit something. Oh, Aussie yen was in a weekly supply, I think, but not far off. Or maybe it wasn't, no, it was here. Yeah, it wasn't far off the high, but was also in supply. So again, you're just looking for that confluence. And it's slightly more difficult now because we haven't got the confluence, but we have got dollar yen approaching this 3-week. We've got a weekly high on euro yen, but I prefer these highs and a monthly level a bit higher. And then pound yen being in this 3-day. So like I said, when the confluence appears, that's when you'll see the trades come in. So it'll be interesting to see if this swing fails over here, because that might give better alignment with the others. But again, here a few decent shorts, one decent short, some very nice longs in there, and then again a nice example of getting the initial bounce and then the retest that took out the low. Short here just gave a scalp. that one's pretty much failed, but did again has a small reaction off that 30-minute. I think that the Aussie hit the 30-minute first and had a good reaction, which is why I started looking at these. But in this case, just came up and again swing failed the high, so I didn't have an alert for a swing failure there. Another not great short there, looking for that retest. But yeah, and then similarly here, just a few from Friday. But again, arguably we're still in this daily supply, and then again I tried the retest on that 4 hour, which just didn't work. Aussie's been more crazy just because Aussie's been stronger for some reason I'm uncertain about. But again, some nice longs at the lows here, and then I have a feeling this alert, yeah, well, after that big drop, I think it just didn't quite hit my alert. The structure was a bit different, so I still have that alert in there, but it just didn't quite hit my alert. Or perhaps hit the alert, but didn't hit the level, I can't recall. And again, similar scenario on shorts, just didn't really give, I think this was a 3-day supply in here, but just didn't really give much off it, but then did give that reaction off the 30-minute supply, either there or there. So hence I looked at it on the others, and again a few more shorts looking for the swing failure here, didn't get it, and then another possibility here incoming. But yeah, it just hasn't been coming back from my long entries either on that. And the CAD pairs, just do CAD yen because we're in the yen space as well, very similar. A couple of decent longs through here, short got annihilated there, very nice short, so again that would have given confluence in on the pre-Easter pump. Very nice there. Don't know why I didn't get the long in here, possibly it had already been tested with these wicks and I was unsure about it, not sure, and then obviously I had a long here. I probably would have had this a while ago on this weekly demand, but again it hasn't given me the test either time. Decent short scalp off there, which I think I was hoping would take those stops, but it didn't, again because it's the yen. And then similarly off this 30-minute supply here, just gave a quick reaction into 12-hour demand, and then the 4 hour on Friday just got obliterated. And again, worth a try because you know we have approached that old high, but obviously these are now all running through. I think I haven't set an alert on this 2 week above because I think it's just a bit messy. Yeah, it's not. So really the 2 week is at the bottom of that candle, but I put it there as a, you know, it's a level that's in there, and there's a daily above, but it's just a bit too large and unclear up there. So and I think all these now, like I said, have monthly, 3 monthly, 6 monthly, weekly demands, etc. So I think I have started setting some alerts on the weekly demands on the yen pairs. So we'll see, and if they break, then we'll know that the trend is going to change. Dollar CAD, again, it's been a nice range, kind of so dollar CAD is kind of opposite to Aussie US for the most part, I think, due to commodities. So it's again something that's good to look at for confluence. If you're trading the Aussie, is the Aussie, if Aussie's at resistance, then you want dollar CAD to be at support, etc. So I think I've had less of a bias on this, although you know it's up as the dollar is up, but you know it's in this giant. So I actually was looking at this on Friday, sort of thinking, well, if this does break out, this now reminds me heavily of dollar yen. So are we going to get some massive crash on CAD that mirrors dollar yen? And then I looked at the CAD futures, and it kind of does look like that. Maybe I'll show that quickly just as a TA thing. Forex, where are we? I think you see it. So some people use the CXY. This isn't going to be updated properly because I haven't put it. So people use the CXY. Ignore all the boxes because it's not properly updated. Yeah, so obviously we're in a range here, and we're still above this support. So yes, it's possible we still get a move off here. It's still holding support, and it's very much in a 7-year sideways range. So it could still move up from here. But I don't really like using the CXY and AXY, BXY, all those things, because they're just on the charts really choppy and ugly. So what I do use a bit more is the other futures charts. And you can see it looks similar here, but obviously the zones. The difficulty you have here is that the contract rollover date changes it. So you have this adjusted chart and unadjusted chart. So this is the adjusted chart, which I tend to prefer. The unadjusted chart looks a bit stronger, but what happens is obviously then the levels will move each time the contract rolls over. I think that might happen a bit on the adjusted chart as well. Oh no, sorry, the unadjusted they don't move, but the adjusted chart, the levels do move. So you have to kind of update them every month, which is annoying, and I still have yet to really figure out which one I find more accurate. But the unadjusted chart just tends to resemble the inverse of dollar CAD, or the same with all the other ones, whereas this kind of can give more information, and I just don't like counter trading it. But yeah, when I was looking at this last week, I was just kind of, or the weekend, I was just kind of thinking, this is I'm not loving this descending triangle here. Like I said, it's still holding support. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now 5 hits on support. But in addition, it's now made, 3 months, 6 months supply immediately above. So yes, it might get a move up, but on the 6 month, this is really not looking that promising. To be fair, I think I've seen something similar on euro pound, and it's made me quite bearish, and it's just ended up being a fake down, and then it just goes straight back up again. So I don't know, we can see, but at the moment, I don't really want to be particularly bullish on the Canadian dollar. And therefore, and if that's the case, then we're potentially going to see this giant consolidation breakout on dollar CAD. But it'd be something interesting to just keep an eye out for what actually happens. I like to see, again, this experience in this space, and I like to see the bigger pictures. Obviously, I don't necessarily have huge amounts of experience with hitting monthly zones and things like that, because it doesn't happen that often. But the other thing here, obviously, is it's leaving all these stops below, so I just don't know if we're going to do a massive wick down before that happens, and back to the bottom of this range. And again, arguably, this is a very corrective move, so it just makes it a little bit challenging. I might have another look later actually at dollar yen and just see how it broke out. Whether that was just an impulse straight on dollar yen if you look at the lower time frames, or whether it did sort of do more of a corrective pattern like this, or arguably it's accumulation, and it's just not going to come back to let shorters out. Anyway, so some decent longs through here. Again, it's been a nice range. That one got taken out. Shorts, I was just a bit too aggressive, and I can't remember, I did have a problem with shorts on this. I can't remember if it was earlier in the year though, but again, I think there's a 2-weekly supply, so I think arguably those are worked. If you look at the 2-week supply, we're going all the way up to the top here, but obviously it came much higher inside the zone, and I think I was looking for like a swing failure on this. And I think it did give it, again, low time frame, but then just continued. Eventually did give a short, gave another scalp off there, but didn't come back down into the demand. And then now a few long entries on the demands. But again, it's just a bit like I say, the inverse to Aussie US, like I said, that some of them start failing because it's now taking a range rather than taking higher lows, and therefore demand and supply are going to start failing a little bit more. And then, actually, I know I've lost a cross, because I know I did have an alert here. So yeah, I had an alert on the weekly, and I commented there was a 12-hour inside, and obviously it did wick way deeper inside there. But yeah, I know I had a long entry through there, and then a long entry on this retest here, and I know I had a short as well. I don't know, this has happened to me on dollar CAD before. Like, I know I also had a short there for the 2-day on Friday. So I don't know why these have disappeared. Might have to. No, they have just disappeared. I just doesn't need to undo what I just did there. Yeah, so I have no idea why they disappeared, but they did just disappear. But yeah, there was a short entry and a long entry from here from last week. So yeah, not too bad on dollar CAD. I'm pretty reasonably happy with that. A couple of fails and some really quite decent moves on that, on the alerts there. EURCAD, I think again sort of challenging with all the Euro ones. So, and the Euro elections also obliterated some of the entries from last week, and I think it was on this drop, or possibly this drop. I can't remember exactly when it was. Yeah, Euro did take out some more of the lows than I thought, and I probably need to think that through a little bit more. But obviously now we're getting the bounce, and again still just in the monthly, and now has made a 3-month demand here, so it's a huge zone. But I haven't alerted this new 3-month demand in here. Again, some decent longs through here, good bias, possibly a couple of shorts in there that I shouldn't have had, or at least that one, maybe that one too. I think that one probably would have worked, but it went almost to the top of the wick. similar here. So again, like some of these just like taking the swing failure. I think there I was looking for a swing failure, and hence the black cross, and it got a really nice reaction off there and a really nice reaction off the high up here. So all up, not too bad on EUROCAD, except for a couple of dodgy shorts and one potentially dodgy long, because that would have taken out the low. And pound CAD, yes, I know I have a couple from here. So this was in annual supply, because I remember thinking about this last week. It's had a weekly demand here, and it had, you know, I did have an alert on it. I had very little reaction off it, and then I had another alert for right at the bottom of it. So it has broken weekly demand, but you can't, again, I just don't generally want to make, I'll show you the weekly chart, I don't want to make the assumption the weekly is going to break until I see it break, so I remain bullish until I see this broken, and then potentially look more aggressively for shorts. And really I wanted a bit of a bigger move, and this is difficult because it does have more demand there. And again, you can see this sort of longer consolidation is a break up from there, so this is still not necessarily a big short bias, but is in annual supply. However, has hit annual supply multiple times, is now quite high in annual supply. So it wouldn't surprise me if this remains bullish for a bit longer, but it's so choppy, I just don't like it. I think I was hoping this would get hit on Friday, this daily demand in here. Didn't get the wick down into it. And it's now pushing a bit today, so we'll see. Don't know if I really like that in there now. It was more just an interim bounce that I was wanting, and I would have preferred this weekly down here. And again, I think this is weekly, 2 week, then 1 week demand, and then now obviously I think it has a monthly in there as well, or if that didn't exist already. I know it had the monthly already and hasn't really come off it. And didn't make a new monthly? No, so it closed below, didn't make a new monthly demand up the top either. So yeah, just I'm a bit unclear on bias on this. I was obviously very biased long down here because this is where we had the monthly demand. So again, seeing my long entries through there, one short just to get potential retracement. Didn't give much of a retracement, and then yeah, aggressive longs before the move up. Short probably shouldn't have had given monthly demand. Yeah, and then finally, I think this was for a 2-day supply in here, and I think it did just wick up the top of the 2-day supply, and again took that swing failure. But yeah, all up, not too bad, and except for yeah, that and then kind of the failed when the weekly demand broke. So that's the CAD pairs, and then just gold and silver, and the indices are left. So gold and silver obviously a bit like dollar yen, just a bit crazier. So new 6-month, 2-month demands and things going on down here, and again just not coming back for any of my retests on the long side. Been nicer since it's been in the range, but I didn't have much. Actually no, so it was for the previous month. So actually it's been since April. It has hit the high, so I have been more active on this. I think through this area I wasn't particularly active because I didn't really. I mean, it's all-time high, so there's no shorts to be had except for pure guessing. I think this 2460 might be a fib level. Doesn't look like a fib level now. I don't know, either that or my fib has moved, but I think that might have been a fib level that I had in there just to watch. Yeah, has given some decent scalps now. You know, now it's like forming this range, and there's 1 or 2 longs that have failed, so that's interesting. So the other thing I look for when it starts to make these ranges, like which side starts to fail. So obviously at the beginning here we had some decent shorts, but then these shorts, you know, got scalps, but then ultimately failed, and we still made a higher high. And then now, you know, we had a long here there fail, a long here fail, and it's still in the range, but then demand is like struggling to kick in at the higher prices, but still holding, overarchingly still holding the base of this consolidation. So what I'm always looking for as well, so that you've got this daily demand, and you can be on any time frame. Sometimes I can go down to the 5-minute, 1 minute in here, and that's what's holding the whole consolidation up. And then you're looking ideally for higher lows off that, but you don't always get them. Like this is your critical level for holding this whole thing. And if you start to see this daily breakdown beyond the swing fail below it, then you're looking for the bigger move down. So at the moment still holding, but has made a weekly supply, 2 weekly supply in fact, by a hair. And I think I put that on the alert this morning. You know, it closed very slightly below, so it's always worth looking to see if you're getting the instant reaction, and it did, but now is pushing up higher, and obviously it's a 2 week, so it can go all the way up here if it wants to. We had a very nice short alert up here, but it just didn't quite hit the 4 hour zone, rejected just below, unfortunately. So you may or may not have got that. And then here just been slightly more aggressively shorting because we had a daily supply, a 3 day supply, etc. But yeah, obviously at this stage it's looking like it wants to move a bit higher inside there. But just see what transpires. Silver, sort of similar scenario, had this sort of huge move up. It was slower than gold, obviously, but big move up in April. Then it hit this annual supply, and we're quite high into it, but did get a decent move off that. But then the retest failed, and it's just pushed way higher into the annual supply and also up to the monthly supply inside it near the top. So I think this was probably on the monthly, but eventually got blown out of the water. Retest entry, gave a bit of a scalp, but obviously went higher and looks again like it probably wicked out of the low time frame zone. So the shorts have been harder on this until we came lower in the range and got some decent shorts there, I think last week or the week before. Yeah, probably less good on this now I look back at it. I think my bias has been correctly up, but until we got back down to this weekly, like I don't know why, I mean, I was probably just being slightly nervous or not wanting to be so aggressive, like longing in here, for example. Either that or an arrow cross has disappeared. And again, like so, yeah, when it settles, when the prices settle, then you kind of tend to find things much easier. I think, here I had a weekly supply, I had the alert, and I said there was a 3 day inside higher, and then also this 4 hour, and similar structure to gold. So we did get a scalp off that, but then the real entry came a bit later, and again, decent short entry for Friday, but could still go much higher in this zone and retrace a lot more of this. And then due to the weekly demand, or 2 weekly demand, I then put a long entry here. So it's still a bit conflicting, we've got this demand, but we're now creating a lot more supply on both silver and gold. So it's again a little bit hard to judge if this supply, or again, we just need to wait and see if this supply is going to be strong enough to start breaking down this demand. So when I look at supply and demand, I'm looking, are they, so in the case, so this is strong enough to make a higher high here, this demand, so obviously we expect a decent bounce there. But then if that bounce then doesn't make another higher high, obviously it still has opportunities to try, it doesn't have to do it on the first go. But if new demand is made, new supply is made in the interim, then it becomes more likely this is going to fail. But until it fails, it's not failed. So again, so my bias then tends to become mixed with these corrective patterns, particularly when higher time frame supply starts to be made above. I wonder if that weekly is new. So I know this weekly was the hit last week. So yeah, you're really looking at, is that weekly supply going to be enough to break this demand? And all it did was just swing failed the low, but didn't break it down. So if we've got that swing fail at the low, then there's a fair chance we might take out that high, but still worth trying shorts in between. So it's all very mixed, and I suppose this is why I do less analysis, because I sort of get, to some extent, I get analysis paralysis, which is why I just stick with scalping levels as they get hit, and generally taking profits relatively quickly, mainly because I haven't got the patience to watch things, and also because yeah, there's, like I say, analysis paralysis, there's too many competing time frames, and just I generally ending up trading the 10-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute time frames off 3 day zones, and obviously you just don't get those reactions that quickly or that significantly off that low time frame. So it's better if you're going to do that, go up to the 4 hour if you want to have further stops and more of a casual trading time, then go up to the 4 hour, 8 hour, 12 hour, and wait till those zones, if they give you, so for example here, it's a question of if, because they don't always give it on the higher time frames, that's the problem. But this got the rejection off the 3 day, came down, made a 4 hour supply, so that really was the bigger entry. But you have to be watching fairly closely for that, so I don't necessarily get those alerted anywhere near as often as you would probably like me to. So yeah, anyway, that's silver and gold. And then finally all the indices, and again these have all just been crazy, and there's probably a bit too many of them, so this makes it, if I really want to go through all of them, but maybe I should, just in case anyone is interested. Okay, so maybe try and be a little bit quicker. So the Dow, again, so these are very similar to all the others in that, they've been very, very strong. So shorts have been, sorry, I say similar to the others, similar to the yen pairs. and gold. That the obviously the market's been very strong, so shorts are much less reliable. But in some cases, like the Dow, for example, there's been some good outcomes even on the short side. So again, some good longs in there, decent short, failed short. Also a failed short because it went through the swing failure, but then a nice re-entry, and then again just trying to be aggressive on the long side here, failed dismally, and then came all the way back down into this 2-day, 4-day demand. So again, kind of mixed results, but some good ones giving some scalps and some bigger moves. So decent short there, and a aggressive short here for some reason. I think because I was looking for it to potentially come back down to this hourly, but it didn't. And then now up to potentially going back into that, retesting those highs, and also has made a new 2-month demand. So I'm not sure how reliable the 2 months are going to be. I put them in, but yeah, if you look at the monthly chart, so the indices particularly, I think some of the forex pairs, but the indices particularly have made some 2-month demands. So this, for example, obviously you can see this is still in the range of the last monthly bear candle. But then if you look at the 2-month, we've just closed above. And in some cases I've alerted just the top of the monthly, but in this case I think I already had an alert for daily, 4-day, weekly demand below. But yeah, just be conscious if you're shorting these of this 2-month level. I just don't know, like I say, how many people look at a 2-month chart to know. They've all got sort of 6-month and annual levels all the way down here, and as anyone who follows me knows, I've been more bullish on these because we came off annual levels in many cases. But yeah, I'm just not sure if these 2 months are going to be. I mean, arguably there's a 2-month that held, but then, was it a monthly as well? No, it was actually a 2-month, but, it's hard to know if there's something else in the same area. So I think in this case, I'm conscious that there's a 2-month there, but the alert is still a little bit lower for the weekly. But yeah, just be careful a little bit of shorting these because of the fact that they potentially come off 2-month demands. And I might delete, like if this comes hard off the 2 months, I might sort of start deleting some of the short entries. Similar for S&P, so again, like I look overly short biased, which I really wasn't, but just didn't come back from many of the long entries. Got a very nice long at the bottom, nice long in there, and then some nice shorts, and then a couple of failed shorts when we got this breakout. Again, I'm not sure why I was biased to this not breaking out here, because I knew it had come off the monthly demand. I think actually I hadn't deleted the short alerts in time, but I knew it had come off the monthly demand right at the start of the June. So not surprised those got blown out of the water, and then obviously it's just not coming back for any of my long entries now. You can see there's hundreds of them going all the way down. And look for the lower high here, which we got, but again, didn't even come back into demand off that, and then we got a sort of a swing failure at the end of Friday. So now again, another, I think this says, is this 2-month demand or a monthly demand down there? So they've got a 2-month all the way down the bottom there. So S&P has moved a lot more. So yeah, so we've got the monthly we already went into, and then this 2-monthly, which is quite a lot lower, which I think I've commented. So yeah, the 2 months are kind of mixed and all over the place on these indices charts, but yeah, just be conscious of the 2 months. Not too bad on S&P. NASDAQ again was also super strong, so I think it was a little bit, so a nice short in there again, but a couple of rec shorts through there. I think that was looking for that swing fail at the high, which didn't happen. Decent short entry here, failed short there, and I think I put a comment worth a try. And but and again, it is worth a try because so you can see this one was weaker. We hadn't, there was no. When I think it was an 8-hour supply in there, but it wasn't really a significant breakdown. This is a better. Obviously, you've had a bigger breakdown, so you're expecting to see more of a reaction when you come up and retest it. But here, obviously, it was very, very early. Long in here, I think it just took out the lows of the zone. And again, just a scenario where it's not coming back to test any of those long entries. But yeah, these, I mean, actually on the whole, these have been better in April, better than the start of the year because they've been ranging, and ranging just makes life a lot easier for hitting zones and things like that. So I definitely prefer that scenario. It's another 2-month demand made on Japan, 225. So there's a 2-month in there, but then still in 2 weeks supply. So I think I was very like, what the hell on this when I looked at this at the weekend. It's had some very nice, just scalpy entries in here, long shorts. 1 or 2 fails, but for the most part gave scalps, or not necessarily fails. I think a couple of the longs went a bit deeper, but then there was a short there that failed, and I think this one I was looking for a swing failure, maybe got it a bit late, and here another swing failure that didn't work. So this is still sort of started now being bullish again, I guess, and potentially just looking to see what the reaction is in here to see if it gives a double top. But again, conscious we've got this 2-month supply. You know, and if this imminent recession is coming that everybody talks about, I guess what I'd be expecting is these 2 months potentially test, possibly make a new high, or possibly just take out the high of this month and then fail and then close below by August, or end of August. And, you know, sort of similar to here, that we had a 2-month, you know, it came down in it. I don't know whether it made a higher within that month or not without checking the lower time frames, but then came back down below and used that as a resistance. Similar scenario here, like it made a 2-month, closed above, but then came straight back down through it. So yeah, I'd be looking for these 2 months to fail, probably for a sign of actually a bigger recession. Again, same here, made a 2-month demand, came back down, closed below, retested it, and that's much cleaner. But if this sort of recession is coming that everybody's talking about, what I want to see is these 2 months flip. But until they do, I'm not assuming anything. As I've said on all of these, you know, everything's coming off annual demand, so this is not unsurprising moves up that we've had. Obviously the yen's been one of the bigger ones. But yeah, so all up, not too bad so far on the indices. And I think, yeah, and then the others are going to be just basically the same. Like, so Russell's been much more of a range, and it's, I think, you know, I've had an alert here, so I think I got a long in there. This one I was hoping to take out the low into the 3-month demand, didn't quite, but the alert went, and I've alerted it yet again. But again, it's just forming a bit of a range, and again, just a bit mixed on the entries, like a couple of scalp longs in there, which are not great, and it's just, I think it just became a bit choppy, and once you get sort of a 2-day demand there, I think it's chop and 2 days sitting on top of 2-day. So if you have stacked demands like this, quite often you'll find that it going deeper into the zone, and again, stacked supply here, so it did give an initial reaction off that 2-day supply there, but then went back deeper into the zone. So again, not bad, better short entries on this actually, although one failed in there, and a little bit harder on the long side because of the chop. And Russell, I'm still quite conscious also. I don't think it's made a new 2-monthly demand, but it does have a monthly demand. It's got that 3-month below, and it's got the monthly that's been inside for God knows how long. EU the same. It's now got a new 2-monthly demand right here. So again, I just want to watch, you know, whether this gets a test and a good reaction off it. But again, not too bad, you know, sort of, I think this is when I started looking at it again, aggressive long at the top, gave a bit of a scalp, but then managed to get the short entry in before the big drop, and decent long entry in there. Here, I guess I don't know what was disclaimed here, whether this was a swing fail of that level, possibly into a supply that was just missed here, but obviously it went a bit higher. And again, just a bit mixed here, you know, probably an aggressive short there, an aggressive long here, which didn't work very well. And then some nice scalp entries on those. Aussie, just ditto really. 1 or 2 longs that have failed, 1 or 2 longs that have failed, 1 or 2 shorts that have failed, and then some decent moves on the short side and decent moves on the long side as well. And again, has the 2-month demand immediately below, which I think in this case I have alerted. I'm not sure why I didn't alert Euro. Might just not have got there yet. I don't know why I didn't alert that one. I think, yeah, because the Euro, maybe I'm just a bit more tenuous because it's got a 3-week supply as well. It's a bit like Japan 225, it's like, yes, while we do have these big demands, we've also got these big supplies as well. I mean, the demands are bigger than the supplies now, but I just want to see a little bit more play out. But again, just be conscious of that 2-month if it hits. I think I still want to just lower on this in general because I feel like it's vastly overextended. And then finally the FTSE, which I think was the only one that's always had the sort of bigger breakout. So again, had the long entry in there to hit the 2-month demand. Actually, this did get a good reaction onto, I think, slightly above the 2-month demand. And then obviously blasted straight through the short entry, and then I just left it alone, being I think it's at an all-time high, unless there's history on another broker that I don't have. But again, did give a really nice short entry there. This short entry, I think, yeah, would have wicked through the zone, but not too bad. And then I think I was just like, well, this was a 4 or 5 day demand in here, this purple. For some reason I was more conservative and just wanted it on the daily below, just to test the breakout level. But it ended up as held the 4 day for quite a while. But might see that move down into here or here imminently. And yeah, still the 2 month down there if it chooses to go lower. Yeah, so I think that's everything. It's an hour and 10 minutes, it's slightly longer, but if people want to watch it, they can, and it's really just showing all the results. I might just throw all the charts in the channel anyway, so you can see, and then people can watch the video if they want to see me discuss it a little bit. And yeah, if you're using the alerts, good luck to you. I hope they're useful. Not financial advice, just looking for zones that may see a reaction, and then trade the lower time frames as the zones are hit is really what we're looking for. So have a great day.